Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're a PHP developer looking to step up your email game, you're in the right place. In today's video, we're diving into one of the most essential tools in the PHP world, PHPMailer. Now, if you've ever struggled with PHP's built-in mail function, or maybe you've run into problems with formatting, attachments, or sending emails through an external SMTP server, you're definitely not alone. That's exactly why PHPMailer exists. It takes all those headaches and makes email delivery much easier, way more reliable, and a lot more powerful. So in this complete implementation guide, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know to get up and running with PHPMailer. We'll start with the basics, like installation and configuration. But we won't stop there. I'll also show you how to send beautiful HTML emails, attach files securely, manage multiple recipients, and troubleshoot the most common issues developers face. Alright, before we dive into the code, let's take a quick step back and answer the big question. What is PHPMailer, and why should you use it instead of PHP's built-in mail function? PHPMailer is an open-source PHP library that's designed to simplify email sending. It's been around since 2001, and it's one of the most downloaded PHP libraries out there, with over 70 million installs on Packagist and more than 20,000 stars on GitHub. You'll also find it baked into popular platforms like WordPress, Drupal, and Laravel, which shows just how trusted it is in the PHP ecosystem. What makes PHPMailer special is its clean, object-oriented architecture. It handles for you all the details of email formatting, including HTML content, file attachments, SMTP authentication, and more. So why do developers prefer PHPMailer over PHP's native mail function? Let's break it down. PHP's mail function might look simple at first, but it comes with a bunch of issues. First, inconsistent behavior. It depends on your server setup, which means your code might work on your machine but fail in production. Second, limited support for HTML emails. You have to write your own MIME structure just to send a styled email. Third, attachments. Forget it. You'll be deep in MIME formatting nightmares. Fourth, international characters often get mangled due to poor encoding support. Fifth, no control over which SMTP server gets used. It just defaults to the server's mail agent. And finally, debugging is nearly impossible. If something fails, you barely get any feedback. Just look at this mess you have to write to send a basic HTML email with mail function. It's way too much hassle, and that's not even touching on attachments or CCs and BCCs. Now let's see how PHPMailer handles the exact same task. Much cleaner, right? You just set your SMTP details, add your sender and recipient, write your HTML and plain text message bodies, and you're done. With PHPMailer, you also get easy file attachments, full recipient management with TU, CC, BCC, and reply to, UTF-8 support, built-in error handling, and support for TLS SSL, which is essential for modern email security. So now you can send robust, production-grade emails without pulling your hair out. Now, we're going to install PHPMailer and walk through real examples step by step. You'll be sending styled, secure emails in no time. Let's jump right in. You've got two main installation options, using Composer, which I highly recommend, or doing a manual installation if Composer isn't your thing. Composer is PHP's official dependency manager. If you don't already have it, head over to getcomposer.org and download it. It works on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. I'll be using a Windows system in this tutorial, but don't worry. The steps are basically the same no matter what OS you're on. Once you've installed Composer, let's verify everything's working. Open your terminal and run this command. You should see something like this on your screen. That means Composer is good to go. Next, navigate to your project folder. You can either add this command to your composer.json file, or just run this one-liner in your terminal. After a few seconds, you'll see a success message confirming that PHPMailer was added to your project. Manual installation. If for some reason you don't want to use Composer, you can still install PHPMailer manually. Here's how. Step 1. Go to the official PHPMailer GitHub page and download the latest release as a zip file. Step 2. Unzip the files into your project directory. Step 3. In your PHP script, include these 3 files. That's it. PHPMailer is ready to use. Now, PHPMailer is installed, and we're all set to move on and send your first email using real SMTP settings. In the next part of the tutorial, I'll show you how to configure everything from SMTP authentication to HTML content and actually send a live email. You must set up the basic configuration options for PHPMailer to work properly. The configuration setup is described in the PHPMailer documentation. Once you've gathered your SMTP server details and login credentials, plug them into the code, as shown in the example. In this code is SMTP call tells PHPMailer to use SMTP protocol. You'll plug in your host, port, username and password, all of which you get from your SMTP provider. Then you set the recipient, subject and message body, and you're ready to send an email. Now let's see how you can send emails specifically using UniOne's SMTP service. PHPMailer works seamlessly with third-party SMTP providers, and UniOne is a great option, especially for transactional emails. Let me walk you through it. Step 1. Head over to unione.io and sign up for an account. After signing up, you'll land on your dashboard. Step 2. Add your sender domain. This is important for email deliverability. We've got a full video on how to do that, so check it out if you need help. Link is in the description. Step 3. Go to the SMTP debug tool inside UniOne. You can use this to test whether your SMTP credentials are working before sending real emails. You'll need your user ID and API key from your UniOne account. These are available in your account settings. Important note. Make sure the email address you're using is from a confirmed domain. Otherwise, your test email won't go through. UniOne offers a great solution. A sandbox domain, ready to use, verified domain, available instantly after sign-up. So you can start testing emails without waiting to verify your own domain. It's perfect for developers to test templates and logic securely, sending only to manually confirmed addresses. Just go to Sending Domains in your UniOne account and click Get a Sandbox Domain. Once you've got your host, port, user ID and API key ready, just drop those into your PHPMailer script like this. Don't forget to enable SMTP auth and set SMTP secure to encryption start TLS. And that's it. You're now ready to send emails through UniOne using PHPMailer. Now let's talk about sending plain text emails with PHPMailer. If you want to send a simple text-only email, no HTML, just plain old text, PHPMailer makes it very easy. Here's how you do it. By default, PHPMailer sends HTML emails. To switch to plain text, set this command. Once you run this, you'll see, message has been sent. That means it worked. Now let's add an attachment to your email. Maybe a PDF report or an image. Here's how. What's happening here? We're using mail add attachment to include files. You can attach PDFs, images, docs, whatever you need. The second parameter is optional and lets you rename the file in the email. And that's it. Now your emails can include files as well. Sending HTML emails. Remember how we set is HTML false function earlier? Yeah, forget that for a moment. To send proper HTML emails, you'll need to change it to true. Here's how it works. Now let's look at a full example. I've included some simple HTML markup just to show how far you can go with customizing the design. Tip. The CSS styles here are in the head section, but for better support across email clients you might want to use inline CSS, even though it can make your code a bit messy. Want to send your email to several people at once? In the code on your screens we included CC carbon copy and BCC blind carbon copy recipients. As easy as that. Sending embedded images. If you want an image to appear right in the body of your email and not as an attachment, use the following approach. Sending an asynchronous email. This section is a bit more complex, especially if you're not a full-time PHP developer. PHPMailer runs synchronously by default, meaning your application will pause until the email is on its way. This can noticeably slow down your app when sending multiple emails or large attachments. Unlike Node.js, PHP doesn't natively support asynchronous operations. But you can simulate async behavior in 2 steps by calling a separate script using exec function. Step 1. Create a background email script. Create a dedicated script, for example, send email background.pp, that only handles sending emails. Step 2. Invoke the background script from your main code. Call it without waiting for the result. Important notes. Exec function is often disabled on shared hosting for security reasons. Check your php.ini settings for disabled functions. In some environments, you may need to use the full path to the PHP binary. Sending bulk emails. You might assume that sending bulk email is as simple as adding all recipients to a single message, but that's rarely a good idea. Here's why. You often want to personalize each message, for example, using the recipient's name. Also, you need to log errors separately for each recipient. Next reason. Some email providers throttle or block bulk sends in a single message. Here's how to do it properly. Why this works better. It keeps the SMTP connection open to improve speed. It handles errors individually per recipient. And it makes it easy to log failures or retry later. Alright, let's talk about something every developer eventually faces. Emails that just won't send. It's frustrating, right? You think everything's set up perfectly and boom, an error. But the good news is, if you're using PHPMailer, you've got powerful tools built in to help figure out what's going wrong. Let's take a look at how PHPMailer handles debugging and how you can use it to fix common issues quickly. PHPMailer's debugging system reveals the underlying SMTP conversation, giving you full visibility into what happens during the email sending process. You can enable debugging by setting the SMTP debug property to one of several levels. The example is on your screens. Now let's see what each debug level means. Level 0, off. No debug output, default. Level 1, client. Shows only the client-side commands. Level 2, client and server. Shows full client-server conversation recommended for most issues. Level 3, connection. Adds connection-related messages. Helpful for start-ls problems. Level 4, low level. Extremely verbose output for deep debugging. Let's go over 2 common errors and how PHPMailer's debug output helps identify them. Example 1. Connection problems. Invalid hostname. If you can't connect to the SMTP server, debug output makes the issue clear. So what happened here? The connection couldn't be established, either because the domain doesn't exist, the port is incorrect, or there's a network issue. Thanks to the debug output, we know exactly where it's failing, at the connection stage. Example 2. Authentication failure. Now let's say the connection works, but your login fails. Here's what you'll see. So the server was there, it was ready to talk, but it rejected your login. That 535 authentication failed line tells us your username or password is wrong. Double check your credentials, especially your API key or SMTP login, and you're good to go. Bonus tip. If you are still stuck, we've got a dedicated debug tool that can help you diagnose issues without digging through code. Give it a try if you want a faster way to figure out what's broken. The link to the service is in the description. Alright, so you've set up PHPMailer, enabled debugging, and fixed the errors. Now what? Before going live, you'll want to test everything thoroughly. Let's go over how to do that and cover a few important security best practices as well. You've got a few great tools at your disposal. First up is our SMTP debug tool. It lets you perform 3 kinds of tests. First, SMTP test. This checks your basic connection, authentication, and ability to send. Second, SMTP proxy test. Now this one's powerful. It acts as a proxy between your app and the SMTP provider, like UniOne. It lets you observe the real SMTP session live. Perfect for debugging tricky issues in your app. And finally, SMTP black hole test. Want to test sending without actually delivering email to real users? This test accepts the email and discards it, so you can focus on debugging your app's behavior without worrying about spamming people. So, before you flip the switch to production, run these tests. They'll save you a lot of pain down the line. Now let's talk about security. PHPMailer is flexible, but that also means it's up to you to keep things safe. 1. Always use encrypted connections. You don't want your email data flying around in plain text. Use Start TLS or SSL to encrypt your SMTP connection. Here's what it looks like. The first option is to use Start TLS, where the connection is switched to secure mode if both parties support it and falls back to non-secure if anyone does not. For stronger encryption, use implicit SSL. This means that the connection will either be secure or will not happen at all. Make sure your SMTP provider supports the method you're using. 2. Protect your SMTP credentials. This one's critical. Never hardcode your username and password into your PHP files. Instead, use environment variables or a secure config system. 3. Validate all user inputs. If you're using any kind of user input in your emails, like names or email addresses, always sanitize and validate it. Here's what you should never do. This opens the door to email header injection and other nasty attacks. Here's the safe version. 4. Implement rate limiting. Want to avoid spam abuse from your app? Set up rate limits. Here's a quick example. You protect your infrastructure and your sender reputation. 5. Use SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. These are critical if you want your emails to reach the inbox and not the spam folder. SPF tells receiving servers which hosts are allowed to send mail for your domain. DKIM adds a signature to each message so the recipient knows it wasn't tampered with. DMARC gives rules for how to handle unauthenticated emails. Once you set these up in your DNS, you can even sign messages directly with PHPMailer. You'll need the OpenSSL PHP extension for this to work. Last but not least, don't show raw errors to users. Here's what good error handling looks like. This keeps your logs useful and your users informed. UniOne works really well alongside PHPMailer. If you're dealing with a growing number of emails or need better tracking and analytics, UniOne gives you the infrastructure without having to build it yourself. You don't even have to worry about setting up your own server. UniOne already has you covered.